Hey everyone, this is Tingo, welcoming you to another War Wednesday. This War Wednesday follows our attempt to match up with Big Swordsys Killer Crew, and this was not a good matchup for us at all. At this point, we were down 2 or 3 alliance mates, and they were fully staffed. Every last one of theirs was bigger than every last one of ours, so it was a bad matchup right out of the gate. So that leads to the very first matchup, which was Weapon X in the reactor, 507k. There was a Silver Samurai and a Lady Deathstrike in the mid-30s k each. I had never tried this before. I'd never taken on Weapon X before. So I took out my Symbiotes, which were a huge team. I was hoping I could get Silver Samurai and Lady Deathstrike early and let Carnage's passive kind of speed up the team, get the Symbiotes started, and hopefully clean up the rest. Before I was able to take a turn, I was wondering what just happened, because my Symbiotes got wiped. Now, I didn't actually walk away during that battle. I was waiting for Anti-Venom's special to come around so that I could revive someone and see if I could get going, but that never happened. And they actually killed off my team so fast I didn't even have time to quit the match, so I lost my Symbiotes right out of the gate. Not a great start on a war that was already not a great matchup. So here we go, round 2. I decided to go with Zemo, Star-Lord, Jessica Jones, and the Eternals. Star-Lord and Jessica Jones were not much more than fluff. Jessica Jones could do a cleanse if needed, maybe land a hit if possible. Star-Lord might be able to feed some energy to one of the Eternals. That was as far as I really thought on this, which, if anybody paid attention to what I just said about Jessica Jones with a cleanse, there's no cleanse when Omega Red lands trauma. Tells you just how little I was actually thinking about that. I just expected the Eternals to clean out the Weapon X team, especially when Icarus ults. If he kills a toon, he will then repeat the attack. I had 2 toons that I had a very good possibility of killing on Icarus's ult, which happened, so that pretty much shredded the team. It was a good comeback for a huge fail with my Symbiotes. Early on, I suggested we go for the reactor because we had punched through one of the flight decks, found the reactor immediately. All of the defenses that we were seeing showed massive, massive teams, and so I suggested that we take a chance and just go for the reactor before any of their defensive bonus rooms were down. This also coincided with the fact that they had already knocked out one of our offensive boost rooms. So our offense was already starting to dwindle. These guys were going at us hard, and that's why I suggested taking on the reactor early, because we were going to need all the points we could get, and we had our best teams early on with our offense already being in trouble. So that's why you see me going for the reactor with these huge teams, even though these defenses are much higher than I would usually try to take on. It was my suggestion, so I figured I'd lead by example. Which leads me into this next battle, which is a basically 1 million collection power Symbiotes versus my Black Order. Now, theoretically, Symbiotes and Black Order is the answer to Symbiotes. That's kind of the reason people put Symbiotes on their defense, is to just soak up a Black Order. Unfortunately, my Black Order isn't as great as I had hoped, and their Symbiotes was definitely much better than I expected. So this is my attack on Symbiotes, and the only good news about this is I managed to actually quit the battle with Black Order before losing it entirely. And you'll notice in the video that it fades to black before I actually do that. I did quit the battle, so I did manage to keep my Black Order back for later. But there we go, loss number 2 of the day, and I'm only 3 attacks in, so I'm having a really bad war. Fortunately, I've only lost 1 team, but the energy is now becoming a constraint because I may have teams left, that doesn't mean my matchups are going to be great, and if I do find good matchups, I'm going to run out of energy to exploit them. So at this point, I'm reeling, and I see this Avengers Tron. It's 785k collection power. There's Captain Marvel over there. This doesn't look great, but I thought, what the heck, I'd take a crack at it with Uncanny, because Uncanny X-Men typically takes on Wave 1 Avengers defense pretty well. Ultron, his counter originally was Black Bolt, because Black Bolt will hard dead him, so that's why I added Black Bolt into here. I've also got a gigantic Wolverine, because he was one of my favorite characters, even though he's an original to the game, and when he first came out, he wasn't the best character. I built him up because I loved him, I loved using him in the game, and so I had a Gear Tier 14 Wolverine, and then the Weapon X rework came along. So all of the boosts to his stats that went along with the Weapon X rework, I don't have Weapon X, he's still sitting on my Uncanny team, so that helps. I've got Cyclops, who's got a great ult. I've got Phoenix, who's got Dark Phoenix, who has a great ult. And I've got Black Bolt, who's got a great ult. So it was just a matter of getting through all of the early turns. Captain Marvel, obviously, when she's that big, can crush a tune. I've got Colossus, who I can taunt with, and he can put his taunt up also on regular Phoenix to try and get her killed off early to go into Dark Phoenix mode. So that was my thinking here, was to try and corral that Captain Marvel first and second turns to either catch it with Cyclops and let the rest of the team continue to do what they do, or to catch it with Phoenix and let it kill her off and get Dark Phoenix on the board. After that, it was just a matter of punching as hard as I could, and the Uncanny X-Men team with Black Bolt is a pretty hard punch, so that was my theory crafting on this idea. It was obviously a 100k punch up. This one finally landed. Alright, well that's me 2 for 4 this war, so now let's take on something that I've seen before. I call this one Tech Collection. It's basically Ghost, Minerva, and the 3 decent tunes from Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord, Rocket, and Groot. I took in my Ultimus Kree team, and fully expected to be able to take this team out real quick. Initial thoughts were basically use Korath's ability to throw a taunt up on Minerva on the other side, then take Ultimus's ult and clean that Minerva out, get rid of her. And once that happens, basically just start working my way through Rocket and Star-Lord. After that, there's no offense left over there. So it would be just a battle of 2 sustainers versus a team that could do some damage. Unfortunately, I did not end up taking out Minerva at all. And if you can't take out Minerva, you've got the revive to deal with. You've also got that fantastic ult that she has, which is a health steal. So now you've got a health steal with a health steal, which is Ghost. So both of them being able to do that, it turns this into a huge sustain battle, and I have way less sustain than they do. So really being unable to land Minerva early was what undid me here, I think. I was very much surprised that I didn't win this battle, and I had no choice but to back out yet again. So here I am, 3 losses in my first 5 hits and more. This has just become a really bad day. Okay, so I can't beat Tech Collection with an Ultimus Kree team. I've still got energy to spend. I've still got a lot of my teams left because of all of the canceled fights. And so now I thought, what the heck, I'd take on that X-Men team. I can already see the Heroes for Hire that is to its left is a 500k Heroes for Hire. My Infinity Watch, who the heck knows at this point if I would have been able to take that Heroes for Hire out. I struggle with 100k punch downs, so I wasn't sure if I would be able to take out the Heroes for Hire. So I thought, I'm going to go learn about another matchup. In this case, it's a 1.1 million Axemen, roughly. Now, I've not faced an Axemen on defense of anything like this size before. And I do know Infinity Watch is one of the best war offense teams, so it can counter pretty much anything. I was a little concerned early on. Axemen does have the ability to put down quite a bit of control. There's potential stuns from both Jubilee and Iceman special if you've got a slow. What I did have going for me is with a full Infinity Watch, you've not only got Safeguard, but you've also usually got Immunity, which can help substantially in this case. So there's not a lot of cleanse they can do, at least in the early turns, plus my Gamora's pretty big. 3 of the tunes will drop down again if they get knocked out, which is Warlock, Gamora, and Nebula. So for your entertainment and my education, here is that battle. Felt good to get a win, especially one that large. So with that, I decided I would go after the tech election again. Ultimus Kree was the basis of the team. I wasn't about to use anything else just because the way these battles were going and the collection powers were going, I wanted to get through a somewhat random team like tech election here with nothing more than spending somewhat random tunes. Ultimus Kree is a solid middle ground team, but when I tried it the first time, it didn't work. So that meant I needed to reimagine things and try again. Like I said, I wanted to use that as the basis of the team, and when I do that, and I need more oomph or more sustain or something like that, I usually add Drax, because he's a pre-taunting tank. I can take out Ronan pretty easily, he's not that big, not much of a loss. I realize he's got the ability to summon tunes, but he's not built up that big, so his summons don't hit that hard. Really, he's here as a 5th for the Ultimus Kree team, simply because he's Kree. So, put Drax in his position, and I needed more thump, so it was time to drop out Korath and put in Ultron. This matchup worked a lot better. It definitely took some time to go through, but Ultron is Ultron. I mean, he's one of the most flexible tunes in war. If you don't take him up against a Kestrel or a Black Bolt, somebody who can make sure that he doesn't revive on one of their hits, he will revive. So he's got built-in sustain. He summons bots that speed up, offense up, and heal. So that makes him one of the more pivotal characters, one of the more flexible characters. Obviously, you don't want to take a bot summoner against somebody like Deathpool, but in most matchups and most cases, he adds a huge amount of punch to your team. I also have him at 4 red stars and gear tier 15. So he was my swap-in for Korath, and I was able to then actually effectuate what I wanted to do in the first attack, which is take out Minerva. The reason I added Drax, I didn't really touch on this when I was talking about him a minute ago, is he's a pre-taunting tank. And so the 2 tunes that you really have to worry about offensively on the other side in this are Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon. Rocket will be ready with his special, which is a high damage single tune hit, and Star-Lord will be ready with his ultimate, which is another high damage single tune hit. So if you can put Drax out there as a pre-taunting tank, he can soak up 2 of the 3 big hits coming from this team early on, which then in turn gives your team a chance to establish itself, get going, get those Ultron bots out there, and start beating up on the rest of Tech Election. So next up is going to be a 620k Marauders. In the past, for Marauders, I've used Kestrel armor, which was Kestrel and 4 power armor tunes. Usually I would take rescue out and put Kestrel in her place. The downside with that team is ever since Sabretooth's Weapon X rework, it can't punch across anymore. So that's no longer as viable an option as it once was. So then your best direct counter for Marauders is Shadowland, and my Shadowland team is less than 500k. I haven't tested it against this size Marauders, but I don't know if it could take it out. So lately, I've been trying to find some other answers, and surprisingly enough for me, X Factor has been a revelation. It almost doesn't matter how good the 5th tune is for X Factor if the X Factor 4 are big enough to handle the Marauders themselves. The key to this working is making sure that you get the multiple man special out there, because what that does is it summons 2 dupes and puts taunt up on all dupes that are on the board. That means that no matter how big Mr. Sinister is on the other side, he's probably going to clone a dupe simply because of the speed and turn order. Well, I'll tell you this much, a dupe with only a basic ability and no special, no ultimate, none of that stuff, pretty much nullifies what Mr. Sinister can do and bring to the Marauders team. And then you've got Shatterstar and Longshot, who will pretty much take care of the rest of the team on their own. Multiple Man summons a bunch of dupes with his ultimate and can fill up the empty slots with dupes. That can take a lot of pressure off from people like Mystique and Sabretooth, and soak up a lot of the hits for you so you don't have to worry about it so much. Which is why I say the 5th tune here really doesn't matter. As long as you get that dupe with the taunt before Sinister does his clone, this should be a breeze. Well, now we're heading into Doc Ock Sinister 6, and I've got my Axemen. This was a match made in heaven for Axemen, so there's not a whole lot to say here. Couple of quick things. You've got a ton of control with Jubilee, you've got a bunch of thunder coming out of Bishop, and you have a little bit of control coming from both Iceman and Kitty Pryde. Kitty's special can land disrupted on a tech tune, and that is particularly helpful because Doc Ock is tech, and he has the ability to grab a bunch of regens all the time. So if you can disrupt him, he's not getting regenerated, then that'll give you an opening to punch through him with Bishop and the rest of your team. Beyond that, use your control wisely, and this should be a pretty easy matchup. So next up is a simple man describing a simple case of insanity during a war that we simply could not win. An 855k collection power Black Order, and here I am going after it with Secret Avengers, Kestrel, and Shield Trooper. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but I've had a 5 red shield trooper for a very long time. And with the synergy with Maria Hill, I decided to upgrade him. Since this recording, I've gotten him to gear tier 14, which makes him punch particularly hard. Would it have mattered in this matchup? No. At this point, I was pretty much out of stuff. I did have a Black Order, but my Black Order wasn't anywhere near powerful enough to take on this Black Order. So I was using Kestrel and Secret Avengers. I had to hope that the Shield Troopers would come out and maybe knock out a Toon if I really wanted to win this matchup in one tap. Truth of the matter is, what I was trying to do was, number 1, get the Black Order out of phase entirely, and number 2, take out at least one Toon. That way, the second attack, I could clean it up pretty easily because, as I've mentioned in other videos, a Black Order that is not complete means that Thanos is no longer nearly as threatening as he once was, and they actually kind of act like any other team at that point. So if I could manage to knock out anybody on this first attack, then I would come back in, use this basically as a sack team, and clean up later. And so that's what attack number 1 is. To expect anything else here was folly. Alright, coming into round 2, I had accomplished both of the missions that I wanted to. Mission number 1 being getting Black Order out of phase turn-wise. That way I got through Thanos' flip, I got through a couple of ultimates, so that was good news. And mission number 2 was knocking out a Toon. In fact, I managed to knock out both Cull Obsidian and Proxima Midnight. So with those two being down, now all of a sudden it's just a regular 3-Toon team, and Thanos is no longer empowered for cleanup. So here I am with tap number 2, Shadowland for cleanup. And now we're on to attack number 12, which is going to be against Brotherhood 2.0. Now I've got Black Order left, and I had a 500k Brotherhood 2.0 staring me in the face. Rhino is usually a good counter for Brotherhood 2.0 as long as he's got a team around him. I didn't have any teams left that I thought I could trust that I could slide Rhino into, which is why I didn't use him in conjunction with a bunch of other Toons. Black Order can take this out, and so that's what I used. The reason particularly why this works is because Thanos has that flip mechanic with his special. There are 2 points in the match where the flip can be very beneficial. Point number 1 is when Magneto blinds the Black Order. You can flip then, remove the blind, and continue attacking. Point number 2 where it can be very beneficial is when both Blob and Juggernaut have taunts on them and you really want to attack somebody else. When that comes up in the match, it's usually shortly after Juggernaut has taunted, which gives him a handful of positive effects. And Blob uses his ability, which will clone all of the positive effects on Juggernaut. So he'll not only grab taunt, but he'll grab all of the other positive effects off of Juggernaut as well. They both have a decent amount of positive effects on them. You flip all of those into negative effects, you're really off and rolling. So in a nutshell, that's why Black Order is a good counter to Brotherhood 2.0. Alright, on to the penultimate match here in the big Swordsys Killer Crew war. This is a 505k Guardians of the Galaxy without Gamora. I originally contemplated going with power armor and maybe throwing in Silver Surfer. I thought about maybe just using power armor. As you can see, it took me a while to figure out what it was that I wanted to do, and I ended up going with Ravagers and Falcon. Now, a little backstory on Falcon. I actually brought Falcon in as one of my DD4 tunes, so he's gear 15, level 80, and what I like about him is his special is immediately available. You can almost recharge your entire squad with speed bar, and so I do like having that ability, plus his ult hits pretty hard when he's this high. And again, I'm going up against Guardians of the Galaxy, which isn't that great, although Drax is one of the better tanks in the game. It took me a minute to piece together the idea for this team. I'm not exactly sure what I was concerned about. I was a little bit cautious because of the way I had started this war. I hadn't done a whole lot to help my alliance out the whole war. I lost 3 out of my first 6 matchups. So here, I wanted to make sure that I got the win on a team I should have been able to get the win on. But as it turns out, everything went great. Yondu is a good summoner. Stitchers are amazing with their health steals. Boomers are amazing with their turn meter steals. Yondu now hits pretty hard. And Falcon being tech, he has a synergy with the Ravagers, so he hits pretty hard and helps the team. So this worked out pretty well for me, and I was pretty happy to get that win. And so I'll leave you with this battle. A cleanup against a Fury and Kestrel left over from a Fury Coulson Hill Shield team. I used my power armor with Silver Surfer, obviously sans Falcon since I'd used him in the previous battle. The purpose of this was to try and take out a Kestrel with my final salvo so that I could still contribute slightly, at least, to our chances of taking out the room. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.